I wrote my first line of Python back in 2013, almost 10 years ago, and I sucked. Today, I suck a little less, and I want to take you guys through my journey and show you how I went from absolute beginner to now freelance data scientist. If you're an aspiring data professional, then this video is for you. Throughout this video, I will go over my education, courses, and major milestones to hopefully inspire you and give you a realistic view of what it's like to become a data scientist. Make sure to stick around till the end, where I will share my top 10 tips for learning data science. Welcome to the channel. My name is Dave and I make videos to help you become better at working with data. Let's get into it. Throughout this video, I'll be using this timeline to go over all the items I want to talk about. It includes all my education, courses, and projects from high school all the way to what I'm currently doing. Now, a brief disclaimer, this is not a video on how to best learn data science. This is just my journey. Now, I won't cover everything that you see here because that would be a 5-hour video. I'll try to keep it brief and focus on the things that have helped me the most. And as I said, make sure to stick around till the end because that's where I will give a conclusion and also give you some recommendations that I wish I knew when I started my data science journey. Okay, so let's start with high school. So from 2008 till 2013, I was in high school. Here you can see all the courses that I was taking behind or underneath the purple header. And basically what I learned here was all the fundamentals. This is not that interesting, but there are some things that actually helped me with my data science career. And that was math, physics, and English. Math because I had calculus, which is one of the fundamentals for understanding the methods and models behind data science. Then also physics, which basically learned me how to work with formulas and mathematical notations, which is also very helpful for understanding models, reading research papers, etc. And then of course English. So I'm from the Netherlands, so I speak Dutch and English is my second language. So learning English in high school was very helpful to my data science career because, as you probably know, all the courses, all the content is in English. So if you want to learn data science, it's very helpful to be able to read and understand English. But to be honest, I learned most of my English while playing video games, and that's why I have RuneScape listed up here, because all the way through high school, basically this was my main focus. Everyone used to play it back in the day, at least at my high school. I really liked it, awesome game. That's where I learned most of my English, to be honest. Okay, so after finishing high school, I basically still had no idea what I wanted to do in life. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what computer science was. I didn't know what machine learning was, but I looked at the website of the two closest universities, which are both in Amsterdam, and I basically looked through all the degrees and just read the description, and I was like, is this something I would like? I don't know. This said something with computers and tech and stuff like that. I think this is cool. And that's basically how I picked my bachelor degree. So I ended up picking the degree Lifestyle Informatics at the Vrije Universiteit in Amsterdam. And the degree Lifestyle Informatics it's kind of a confusing name, I would say. So they used to call it Artificial Intelligence. And then they changed up the program a bit to be more focused on basically helping humans to live a better life through or with the help of technology. And the funny thing is, I just mentioned that I played a lot of RuneScape during high school, and after finishing high school during the summer break, I was kind of getting bored of RuneScape, and it was summer break, so I had a lot of spare time and I was used to playing video games. So I thought, let's look for something new. And my brother had been playing League of Legends for quite some time, and I thought, let's try it out. So I just got rid of playing RuneScape and then I basically got hooked to playing League of Legends. So yeah, off to a great start for university. And I would definitely say first 2 years of my bachelor, League of Legends was the main focus and courses were second. I got to Platinum 4. So what was I doing during my first year? And as I mentioned, my degree wasn't all about data science, so a lot of the things here are not directly relevant for data science, but this was the year I got an introduction to Python, so I wrote my first line of Python code within this year, and I also had a course called Web Technology, which was also quite cool. We learned HTML, CSS, build a website, stuff like that. But I remember this course and it was hard. I also failed it the first time, so I had to retake it. The assignments were hard for me, and I think that's also mainly because I had no idea what I wanted to do with Python and what it was for. I thought it was quite cool, but I didn't have like the intrinsic motivation, I would say, to go out and go beyond the stuff that was covered in the lectures to learn more about Python. For me, this was just about passing the course. And I remember that the assignments, so these were individual assignments, but everyone was doing the same assignments. And I would just ask around within my class, like, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I would copy certain pieces of code. And I know for the final assignment, we had to build a snake game. So the game where you go with the snake and then catch apples and stuff, you get longer. We had to program that. And I didn't understand any of it, man. It was brutal for me. But yeah, managed to pass it. Was my first introduction to Python, very cool. But then I went on to the second year, and this was the year where I got a bit more familiar with working with data, and that was mainly through these two courses over here. So databases, where we got SQL. So one of the fundamental skills of being a data scientist is knowing how to use SQL to query and push data. And empirical methods, which was basically all about statistics, Z-scores, distributions, stuff like that. And also assignments with the R programming language. And again, this was hard for me. Same as Python, now we get to learn R, and I wasn't really interested in it and I found it very difficult. I also failed this course the first time, and now that I think about it, databases as well, I also failed it the first time. So I had to retake both these courses. Other courses you can see, we had a lot of psychology as well, academic English, and also, as I say, the web technology, behavior and health. Those were all not so much tech courses, I would say, more focused on the human side, because as I said, lifestyle informatics bachelor was focused on helping humans to live a better life through technology. So technology was a part of it. So I would say the main takeaway from this is that if you're currently learning data science and you're thinking, man, statistics, programming, I don't know, I find it very hard, I don't know if this is for me. If you really want it and you really like to pursue a career within data, I would say anything is possible. It just takes some time to get used to it, because it's so different from our everyday life and other typical courses that we get through high school and stuff. At least it was for me. Okay, and then on to the third year. So my final year of my bachelor degree. And now this degree was a 3-year program, but as you can see here, it took me 4 years to complete it. Mainly because of the courses that I had to retake that I just mentioned. And also because I was playing League of Legends all the time. So basically any class that wasn't mandatory, I would just skip, stay home, and then just play League of Legends. And then just before the exam, I would just try to learn as much as possible and then get by with a 6, which would translate to a D. So yeah, I would just basically aim for 6s and then be happy to just pass the exam, forget everything that I learned and continue on to the next one, and then repeat that cycle for about 3 years. But in my final year, things changed for the better, because I was introduced to machine learning for the first time and text mining. So these were two great courses, and I wish they put them earlier in the program instead of in the final year, because as I mentioned, in the first year I got an introduction to Python, and I think there were some, but I think 1 or 2 courses where you also had to use Python, but then you had to do group assignments and I would just get carried by my classmates. But yeah, so you didn't really had to use Python throughout the degree. And then in the third year, we got machine learning text mining. And I remember that for the first time, I thought, wow, now I understand what I can do with this language. I can make models, I can automate stuff. And I finally got excited about learning Python, developing and building models, and this really kickstarted my data science journey. And for the first time, I kind of had a sense of direction and thought, yeah, I think this is where I want to go. And so for my final bachelor project, where I had to write a thesis, I decided to do a machine learning project. And this is actually quite cool. So I wrote down here that this was the year that I basically fell in love with machine learning, and I also published a paper. So my bachelor thesis got published, which is actually quite cool. And if you go to scholar.google.com and search for my name, then you can see this one over here. Detecting Dutch political tweets, a classifier based on voting system using supervised learning. So I wrote this paper together with my supervisor. So first, for the bachelor project, I wrote the thesis myself, and then we decided, hey, let's try and send it to a conference and see if we can get it published. And then I did this together with my supervisor, and it did. It got published, which is actually quite cool. You can also see that it's even cited 7 times by other researchers. The project was basically about classifying Dutch political tweets. So I built a Python scraper to scrape tweets that were related to politics, and then we built a classifier to vote whether it would have a positive or a negative sentiment with regards to a certain party. So actually quite cool. Yeah, this is published and available online. I also got to present this project at a conference in Madeira, which was a very cool experience. And not only because I could attend the conference and present my project, but also because I got to explore the island. And Madeira is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. So I would highly recommend checking it out if you get the chance to. So yeah, this is basically where things changed. And as I just mentioned, I wasn't particularly a star student throughout my bachelor degree, but at the end, I started to get some pretty good grades. So for the machine learning and text mining and for my final thesis, I got some pretty good grades. I decided to follow up my bachelor degree with a master's degree in artificial intelligence. And while picking my bachelor degree was basically a shot in the dark, as I just explained, for my master's degree I had a pretty good idea of where I wanted to go with my education and later on with my career, because I knew I wanted to do something with machine learning. So my master's degree was a 2-year program, and this was basically the period in which I sucked a little less at Python. I had a better understanding of data mining and machine learning. I went on an exchange to Australia, which was awesome. And I had my first ever experience at the company working in a data science team. I did the masters at the same university, so at the Vrije Universiteit of Amsterdam. Also lots of courses, but the main ones were data mining techniques, experimental design data analysis, multi-agent systems, and machine learning for the quantified self. Those were all very specific to either working with data or data science, and these courses really taught me a lot. And I was also now at a point where I was interested in it, and I had some pretty okay Python skills, which allowed me to also complete the assignments on my own without having to rely on my classmates. So this is where things got going well for me in terms of my data science career. Now in the second year, as I mentioned, I went on an exchange to Deakin University in Melbourne, and there I followed some parts of the data science and analytics master, which was an awesome experience. But most of the courses that I was taking at Deakin University were covering material that I've already had in previous courses. So I didn't learn that much at Deakin University, but that wasn't a problem at all because I was on exchange in Australia. I got to explore a different country, and I also got to do this with 2 close friends of mine, which was just an awesome experience. And then for my final master project, this was back in the Netherlands, I did an internship at a company, and I also wrote my master thesis there. My research was about a new way of building marketing attribution models using Bayesian networks. And I learned a ton during this internship, also not only about the project itself, but also this was basically the first time where I had to use SQL to query my data instead of just using CSVs that I got during my courses from university, but now querying from an actual database, understanding how to work with virtual machines, and also basically just team dynamics, what it's like to work in an actual data science team with professionals. So overall, a very helpful experience. And that concludes my life as a student, basically. So I graduated from my master's degree, And this time, where I mentioned that during my bachelor degree I was aiming for 6s, now things changed. And that was just mainly because I was interested in all the topics that we were covering in all the courses. And now I managed to get really good grades. I even got an cum laude distinction for this degree, which still is quite amazing to me if I compare that to my younger self. But that is just this switch in mindset that I had, where I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. And I also started to explore and learn about things related to data science beyond just my classes. So just for fun. So I would go on YouTube, I would read research papers, I would just look into it, try and learn as much as possible. And that brings us to 2019, where I started my career as a data scientist. And this is actually quite a funny story. So after graduating from my master's degree, I tried to find a job within the data science space. So I reached out to several companies, also had a lot of interviews. I eventually narrowed down on 3 interviews and also assignments for all 3 of them. I basically got a job offer for all 3 of them, which was amazing, right out of university, no experience. And eventually I decided to go with the offer from a large consulting company. And after signing, I wouldn't start until I think 5 or 6 weeks later or so. And what happened within that 5-6 week period, I got an opportunity to work on a project for a company on a freelance basis. So this was a 1-week project with a few friends of mine, and I got that project through my network, which was very fortunate. And that small project turned out great, so the company liked it, I liked working on it, and then I got an opportunity to continue working on it for a longer period of time. And during that period, I got into a serious conversation with one of the managers over there. And they were like, hey, I want to build this team within the organization with different people, with different backgrounds, to basically create a small group of people that can work on new innovations for the company. And that also includes data innovations and machine learning, data science innovations. So I basically got an opportunity to extend my freelance project there for a longer period of time. And at this point, I was like, okay, this sounds really exciting. I like what I'm currently doing, but I signed a contract and I'm about to start a new job in about 3 weeks. I think it was something like that. So I basically had a decision to make. So do I continue over here with a small project that could be extended, or do I go with a more secure job at a big consulting firm? In the end, I decided to get rid of the contract. So I already signed. Company was probably not happy with it, but I decided to get rid of it and decided to pursue this project, this freelance project. To this day, I'm very happy that I made that decision because it turned out great for me. I'm still working as a freelance data scientist, and I haven't had a single week where I didn't have work within the past 3 years or so. So working as a freelancer, that of course is awesome, because one of the major drawbacks of working as a freelancer is that you have to do outreach to get projects, and it can happen, of course, that sometimes there are periods where you cannot work and then you also don't have an income. But luckily for me, that has never been the case. So I'm very happy that I made that decision back in 2019. To sum this up, this was actually the first time I got real world experience working on real projects. So I know I mentioned I did an internship, but that was still kind of my own research. And this was the first time where I got to work on real projects for real business problems. I also continued to learn. So I make sure that almost every week I allocate time to learning, because data science is such a large field and there's so much to learn, and also the information changes at a very high speed. So every year or so there are new models, new methods that come out that beat previous models, and to stay on top of everything you just have to spend some time to stay relevant, I would say. I also took on some personal projects, and right now I'm currently in a phase where I'm also giving back by making videos like this and sharing the things I've learned to hopefully inspire you, help you with your data science journey. Now, as far as my career goes, here on the right we have the client projects. To give a brief overview, I've worked on data engineering projects, anomaly detection models, created dashboards and reports, did predictive modeling, also just did data analysis reports. We just have to write a report, and I've also helped with setting up and analyzing IoT data, so setting up pipelines, setting up dashboards. And these are highlighted in red for a reason. So as you saw, other really relevant courses, I've marked them green, but basically this is where it's all at. I would say like 80% of what I've learned and what I now apply within my day-to-day job comes from these projects. There's just no course that beats solving an actual business problem using data and implementing a model. Having said that, courses are still great to start if you don't have any experience, because it's pretty hard to start with a project when you don't have any experience. Next to my university courses, I also followed some online courses. So here are 3, so 2 from Udemy, and also this is a very good one by Matt Doncho from Business Science University. This is a paid course, but I think this is a really good course. It's Python for data science automation. I also watch a lot of YouTube videos, which are awesome in my opinion. That's also why I decided to start a YouTube channel, because I just love watching YouTube videos so much. You can get so much from them, all for free, and I want to do that as well. Also GitHub, open source projects, notebooks, those are excellent resources to learn and apply data science. Research papers, bit trickier to read, to get into, but the best stuff is in the research papers actually. And then finally, I've worked on some personal projects. So created a crypto trading bot in Python, a personal digital twin dashboard also in Python and Grafana. I built a personal finance dashboard, and I'm currently working on this YouTube channel where I also continue to learn, make tutorials, and develop myself as well. So that basically concludes my whole data science journey, from absolute beginner to now working as a freelance data scientist. And as I promised, I will now get into the conclusion and my 10 tips that I wish I knew when I started my data science journey. Let's go over here and hop into them. Okay, so first of all, there are many different ways to learn data science. I've showed you my journey, but this is far from ideal. If we zoom out and look at all the gray boxes over here, these were all courses from which I would say didn't contribute at least much to my skills as a data scientist. Then we got a degree can help, but it's definitely not necessary. I think some of the online courses I took are way better than anything I got in university. Although I must say, most jobs I think require some sort of a degree. But if you have a great portfolio and you can prove your skills in that way, I think you should also be fine and could easily get a job, especially nowadays when data scientists are really scarce. Then continuing, invest in yourself beyond your college education. This goes without saying, I guess, that even after you finish your initial learning and you got a job, you have to continue to invest in yourself and continue to improve your skills, at least in my opinion. Then another tip, take notes, and do this within some sort of digital note-taking app, and try to adhere to a systemized way of taking digital notes in something like Notion or Obsidian or any other note-taking app that is currently available. It doesn't really matter how you do it, but try to build a system that is repeatable over years. So when you look back, that you still have those notes accessible to you. So if I look back into university, I didn't take much notes, to be honest, but some of them are in Word documents and stuff like that. I don't open those. I now take all my notes in Obsidian, which could be a really interesting topic for another video, but that is just a systemized way in which I have basically built a system for myself on how I format notes, and it's all in Markdown, so it doesn't really matter on what device I open the notes. They can continue to grow with me, and that just helps so much with your learning when you can go back to look at your old notes. So that's another tip. Then this is a big one. Focus on just-in-time learning instead of just-in-case learning. And what I mean by this is basically this is a more of a work from a project mindset, where you take on a project and then you have to figure out how to do something and then you learn it. That is just in time, because you want to know how to do something and then you look it up. Whereas just in case learning would be, oh, I want to learn data science, let's follow this course. And what I've noticed is when you do that, then during the course you're like, oh, this is awesome, I'm learning so much, but then you're not applying the material that you've learned to tackle a project. And then believe me, once the course is over, you will forget everything about it. Whereas when you do it with a project, you do just-in-time learning and then you learn something and then do a project, it sticks much better because you have translated that information that you learned within the course to your own project. So that is another big one. Then to follow up on this one, projects over courses. Already explained it. Then another big one, data wrangling over building models, at least in the beginning. When you start out with data science, I know a lot of people want to jump straight into the modeling and the algorithms. That is the exciting stuff. But believe me, when you are working as a data scientist or data analyst, 80% or even more of your time is spent working with the data to just get it into a format that can work for a model and to understand it. This is where your time is spent. So get really good at wrangling data and then get into building models. Another one, learn or at least understand cloud. They don't teach you this in university, at least not in my courses. But when you're working in a job, it's all cool and well that you got a nice model running within your Jupyter notebook, running locally, but that model is of no use. Where you make value is when that model is implemented in production, and that's all done in the cloud. So try and learn something like Google Cloud, AWS or Azure. If you don't know which one to pick, just pick one and stick with it. Don't try and learn multiple cloud platforms at once. Eventually, when you start to work for a company, they will use a certain cloud provider and you have to use that one basically. But they all work kind of similar. So the fundamentals, the principles are the same. Then another really big one is get good at communicating and presenting results in an understandable way. And I would say a mediocre data scientist that can explain model results in a way that the business understands it is of more value to a company than an expert data scientist that can't explain anything of what he's doing to the business. So, and this just takes time, takes practice, but this is a large part of being a data scientist, is explaining your results to the business. And then to conclude, you have to love what you do. And this goes back to the story about my bachelor degree where I was getting 6s, trying to learn Python without having a real motivation to do it and understanding what I wanted to do it for. And this all changed during my master's degree, where I saw this trajectory in front of me, where I saw myself working as a data scientist, building machine learning models, and that got me excited and I loved it. And that is what has enabled me to stick with it over time and continue to learn, to grow, and to develop myself as a data scientist. And that concludes my data science journey and the conclusion and tips that I gave you at the end. This video turned out to be quite long. If you made it all the way to the end, I want to thank you. I know that your attention is very valuable and I appreciate it that you've decided to give your attention to this video for this extended period. I hope that you liked it, that you learned something from it, and that I can inspire you to continue your data science journey. Now, if that is the case, I would really appreciate it if you like this video and subscribe to the channel. I'll be making more videos related to Python, machine learning, data science, basically anything to help you become better at working with data. So if that's what you're interested in, you should definitely subscribe. I want to thank you for your time and your attention, and I'll see you in the next one.